Have you noticed your adult children acting a little more distant lately? Maybe the phone calls are shorter, visits less frequent, or invitations just quietly ignored. You might think they're busy or that life's pulling them in new directions. But what if the problem isn't them? It's something you're saying. In this video, I share 5 common phrases that older parents say without realizing the damage. And one of them, it's powerful enough to end your relationship for good. I've worked with families for decades, and I can tell you this. Most older parents who feel disconnected from their adult children are not bad parents. They are loving, they are generous, and they have good intentions. But sometimes, the words they use, without even realizing it, can slowly push their children away. It is not about one big mistake. It is about small phrases that get repeated over time. Things that sound harmless, but carry hidden weight. In this video, we are not pointing fingers. We are building awareness. I'm going to walk you through 5 phrases that may be creating silent walls between you and your children, and I will show you what to say instead to reconnect in a healthier, more loving way. Let me tell you about Harriet. She is 72, a widow, and a mother of 3 adult children. Over the past few years, she noticed something shift. The phone barely rang. Invitations went unanswered. Holidays felt cold. She felt abandoned and confused. She kept asking herself, what did I do wrong? Then one day, her youngest daughter invited her to a counseling session. That is when it clicked. It was not that her kids stopped loving her. It was the words she used, the way she spoke, that left them feeling judged and manipulated. They were protecting themselves, not punishing her. The good news? Once she changed how she spoke, her family slowly came back. Love, laughter, and trust returned. And so can yours. Let's start with a phrase that might sound familiar. After everything I've done for you. Have you ever said that? Maybe not out loud, but perhaps you've thought it. It usually comes out when we feel hurt, unappreciated, or invisible. It comes from love, but lands as guilt. Here is the truth. When a parent says, after everything I've done for you, what the child often hears is, you owe me. And that shifts the relationship from love to debt. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a family therapist from Northwestern University, explains it like this. She says, that phrase turns years of parenting into a transaction. It creates an emotional debt the child feels they can never repay. Let me share a story with you. Gregory is 76. He lives in Phoenix and has 1 adult son. Gregory paid for college, helped with rent, and even co-signed on a car loan. And every time his son missed a call or took too long to respond, Gregory would say, after everything I've done for you, the least you could do is call me once a week. Sounds reasonable, right? But one night, during a rare dinner together, his son snapped. He said, Dad, I feel like every time I talk to you, I'm paying a bill. It never feels like enough. It's exhausting. That moment broke Gregory's heart. He never meant to hurt his son. He thought he was just expressing how much he missed him. But what his son heard was emotional debt and pressure. With help from a family counselor, Gregory changed his approach. Instead of reminding his son of past sacrifices, he focused on the present. He said, I enjoy our talks. I miss hearing about your life. Could we find a regular time to catch up? What works for you? Guess what happened? His son started calling more. Not because he felt guilty, but because the pressure was gone. It became a choice, not a chore. That one shift in language created room for connection. And this is important. Most parents do not say this phrase out of anger. They say it out of longing. But when love is tied to obligation, it can feel heavy. Children need to know that they were loved freely. The support they received growing up was given, not loaned. So what should you say instead? Try this. I really value our connection. I know life is busy, but I would love to hear from you more often. Is there a day that works best for you? Simple, honest, respectful. You're not keeping score. You're opening a door. And if you ever feel the urge to say, after everything I've done for you, pause for a moment. Take a breath. Then speak from your heart, not your history. Because in the end, what your kids need most is not a reminder of what you did for them. They need to feel that your love has no strings attached. Let's talk about a phrase that can quietly destroy your relationship with your adult child. Your spouse is turning you against me. It might not come out exactly like that. Sometimes it sounds like, you've changed since you got married, or I bet your wife doesn't want you to visit me. It might even be a sigh or a comment said under your breath. But it all points in the same direction, blame. Now, here's what you might not realize. When you say something like that, you are not just criticizing their partner. You are attacking your child's judgment. You're making them feel like they have to choose sides. And when adult children feel they have to pick between their parent and their spouse, the spouse usually wins. Dr. James Wilson, who works with families across generations, explains it this way. He says, this kind of comment creates a split loyalty. And when someone is forced to choose between peace at home or guilt from a parent, they will protect their home. Let me share a story. Barbara is 68 and lives in Seattle. She has a son, David, who got married 3 years ago. At first, things are fine. But over time, Barbara felt like David was pulling away. He used to visit every Sunday. Now it was once a month. Then, once every few months. So she started saying things like, I guess Sarah is keeping you busy, or you never acted like this before she came along. At a family gathering, Barbara made a comment that changed everything. She said, loud enough for Sarah to hear, well, I know who wears the pants now. David was quiet the rest of the night. The next day, he sent a message, Mom, we love you, but we need space. These comments are hurtful. They make Sarah feel unwelcome. Barbara was heartbroken, but eventually she did something brave. She called and said, I'm sorry. I was scared I was losing you, and I took it out on Sarah. I want to do better. It took time, but slowly the relationship healed. Here is the truth. When your child falls in love, their partner becomes their person. That does not mean you're less important. It means you're a part of a bigger circle now. If you want to stay close, the best thing you can do is support that relationship. Instead of saying, your spouse is turning you against me, try saying, I care about both of you, and I want to find ways to stay connected that work for your life now. That one shift changes everything. It shows respect. It invites closeness. And most of all, it shows your child that you trust their choices. Because when you trust them, they feel safe coming home. Let's talk about one that sneaks in a conversation so easily, is the phrase, in my day, we did things differently. You might say it when you see how your daughter is raising her kids, or when your son talks about his job. Maybe you do not even mean it as criticism. Maybe it just feels like a fact. But here is how it often sounds to them. You're doing it wrong. Dr. Sophia Chun, who studies intergenerational relationships, explains that this phrase can unintentionally create distance. She says, when older adults say in my day, it can make the next generation feel like they're being compared and found lacking. Let me give you a real example. Timothy is 74. He lives in Nashville and has a close relationship with his daughter, who just had her first baby. He was thrilled to become a grandfather. But every time he gave advice, it started with in my day. In my day, we did not use car seats. In my day, babies ate real food, not mashed peas from a pouch. In my day, we just let kids cry it out. Now, Timothy meant well. He just wanted to share what worked. But over time, his daughter stopped asking for help. She felt judged, like her choices were being dismissed. Finally, one afternoon, she sat him down and said, Dad, I know you love me, but every time you say my day, it makes me feel like what I am doing today is not good enough. That was a turning point. Timothy took it to heart. Instead of starting with advice, he started asking questions. He would say, "How are you guys doing bedtime now?" Or, "I read something online about baby-led weaning. Is that what you're doing?" And something amazing happened. His daughter began inviting his input again, not because he changed his opinions, but because he changed his tone. Here is the big lesson. When you lead with curiosity instead of criticism, you create connection. You do not have to pretend the past was not different. It was. But there is a difference between sharing memories and making comparisons. So what should you say instead? Try this. I would love to hear how you're doing it now. And if it helps, I can share what worked for me back then. This invites a two-way conversation. It shows respect, and it keeps your wisdom in a room without pushing your child away. Remember, every generation faces new challenges. The world your children are raising their kids in is not the same one you raised yours in, and that is okay. They are not asking you to erase your experiences. They just want to feel like they matter too. So next time you feel the urge to start within my day, take a breath. Then choose connection over comparison. That one choice can turn a moment of tension into a moment of trust. Let's talk about a phrase that often comes from a place of loneliness but lands like blame. You never visit me. You never call. You always forget about me. Sound familiar? These kinds of phrases are often said in moments of hurt. You miss your kids. You feel left out. You are craving connection. But here's the problem. When you say something like, "You never call me," your child hears, whatever you are doing is not enough. Even if they just talked to you last week. Even if they're juggling work, kids, errands, and their own lives. It puts them on the defensive. And when people feel like they can never win, they stop trying. Dr. Michael Ramirez, a psychologist who works with families, says absolute statements like never or always create a trap. They erase the effort your child is already making and make them feel defeated. Let me tell you about Evelyn. She is 70 and lives alone in Chicago. Her daughter, Melissa, lives a few hours away and has 3 young children. They talk at least once a week, sometimes more. But Evelyn still felt lonely. So she started saying things like, "You never call me anymore," or "I guess you're too busy for your mom." At first, Melissa tried to brush it off. But over time, it wore her down. She told a friend, "No matter how much I try, it is never enough. Every time we talk, I feel guilty." That friend gave Evelyn a suggestion. Start keeping a journal. Write down every time Melissa called, sent a photo, texted, or reached out in any way. So Evelyn did. And after 2 weeks, her eyes were opened. She saw that her daughter was contacting her quite often. The problem was not a lack of communication. It was that Evelyn was focusing on what was missing instead of what was there. That was a turning point. Evelyn stopped using guilt as a way to ask for love. She started saying things like, "Thank you for the pictures you sent. They made my whole day," or "I enjoyed our talk last Thursday." And guess what? Melissa started calling more. Not out of obligation, but because the conversations felt better. There was less pressure, more appreciation. Here is the big lesson. When you lead with accusation, you push people away. But when you speak with gratitude and express your needs clearly, you invite them in. So instead of saying, "You never call me," try this. "I love hearing from you. Is there a time each week that works best for us to catch up?" That one small change in wording can shift everything. Because here is the truth. Your kids care. They're doing the best they can. And they want to feel like what they do matters, not that they are constantly falling short. When you acknowledge their efforts, you build trust. And trust leads to more connection. That is how relationships grow. Let's talk about one of the heaviest phrases a parent can say to their child. "You'll regret it when I'm gone." Now, I know this one usually comes from a place of pain. Maybe you feel forgotten. Maybe you are worried your child will miss you too late. Maybe you're trying to shake them into realizing how short life is. But here is the hard truth. When you say something like that, you are not creating closeness. You're creating fear. And fear drives people away. Dr. Elizabeth Parker, a gerontologist who has studied parent-child relationships in aging families, says this: using mortality as emotional leverage often creates trauma instead of connection. It makes children feel like every conversation is a test, or worse, a guilt trip. Let me introduce you to Robert. Robert is 78 and lives in Denver. He has 3 adult children and several grandkids. Over the years, as his health declined, he noticed fewer visits, shorter calls, and more distance. So he started saying things like, "You'll regret not spending more time with me when I'm gone," or "One day, you'll wish you had listened to me." He thought it would make them come closer. It did the opposite. His kids started calling less. They stopped inviting him to family trips. They said they were busy, but the truth was they were emotionally exhausted. Finally, his oldest son sat him down and said, "Dad, we love you, but every time we talk, you remind us that you are dying. We want to enjoy you now, not feel guilty every time we hang up the phone." That moment hit Robert hard. He realized his words, while honest, were hurting more than helping. With some support, Robert made a change. He stopped making death the center of every conversation. Instead, he focused on life. He started saying things like, "I enjoy our time together," or "Let's make more memories while we can." And guess what? His kids began calling again. They started inviting him to birthdays, weekend visits, even short vacations. Not because they felt sorry for him, but because the relationship felt lighter, warmer, more joyful. Here is what you need to know. Your children already understand that life is short. They do not need a reminder. What they need is time with you to feel meaningful, not heavy. So instead of saying, "You'll regret it when I'm gone," try saying, "It means so much to me when we are together." I hope we can do that more. Another helpful shift is to talk about the present rather than the future. Share stories. Laugh together. Celebrate small moments. Let your children associate time with you as something joyful, not emotionally taxing. That one shift makes a world of difference. Because here is the goal. You want your children to come closer out of love, not fear. You want connection, not compliance. When you lead with love, not guilt, you open the door to more shared moments, more laughter, and deeper bonds that last. And that, more than anything, is what your heart wants. Let's talk about something sneaky. Something that feels so normal, so harmless, that you might not even realize it is damaging your relationship. I'm talking about those little comments we make without thinking. The tone, the sigh, the "well, you know how you are," or the eye roll during conversation. Maybe it is a sarcastic, "Oh, thanks for finally calling," or "Nice of you to remember I exist." These moments might feel small, but over time, they add up. And your adult child? They notice. Dr. Ephraim Hayes, a psychologist who studies family communication, calls this emotional static. He says, these minor expressions of judgment or guilt may not seem like a big deal individually, but together they create a noisy environment that makes communication feel unsafe. Think about it like this. Imagine trying to listen to your favorite song on the radio, but there is constant static in the background. Eventually, you stop listening. Not because you hate the song, but because the noise makes it hard to enjoy. That is what happens when emotional static builds up in a relationship. Let me tell you about Patricia. She is 75, lives in Boston, and has 3 grown children. She loves them dearly, but she has a habit of making little passive-aggressive comments. Things like, "I guess your job is more important than your mother," or "I suppose I will just spend Thanksgiving alone again." She never yelled, never said anything overtly cruel, but her words carried weight. Over time, her kids started calling less. Visits became rare, and Patricia felt more and more hurt. One day, her daughter finally said, "Mom, I love you, but every conversation feels like a guilt trip. It is exhausting." Patricia was shocked. She thought she was just being honest. But when she reflected on her words, she saw the pattern. So she decided to change. She started writing down the things she wanted to say in a journal before saying them out loud. If something sounded bitter or sarcastic, she rewrote it. She replaced judgment with curiosity. She asked questions instead of making assumptions. Within a few months, something shifted. Her kids started reaching out more. The conversations felt lighter. There was laughter again, not because her children suddenly had more free time, but because they felt safe. Here is the point. Sometimes it is not the big fights that break a bond. It is the small, repeated moments of hurt that chip away at trust. So what can you do? Start with self-awareness. Next time you are about to speak, pause. Ask yourself, am I speaking from love or fear? Am I expressing my needs? Or am I blaming someone else for how I feel? Then choose your words carefully. Try saying, I miss you and would love to spend more time together, instead of, you never make time for me. One builds a bridge, the other builds a wall. Remember, your words matter, and it is never too late to change how you use them. So now you have heard the phrases, and maybe one of them sounded familiar, maybe more than one. That is okay. This is not about feeling bad. It is about waking up. It is about recognizing the power of your words and making a new choice. You see, these phrases do not sound awful on the surface. Most of them seem normal, common, but that is what makes them so dangerous. Dr. Ephraim Hayes from Harvard says, when someone hears guilt or blame from a loved one, their brain reacts like it is under threat. Their heart rate goes up. Their body gets tense. And over time, they start to avoid the source of that stress. That is why your adult child might call less, visit less, and respond less. Not because they stop caring, but because they associate your words with discomfort, not comfort. But here is the hope. That pattern is not permanent. Just like your words shape the distance, your new words can help close it. One kind word, one better sentence, one honest, gentle request instead of guilt. And it starts small, like saying, I enjoyed talking with you yesterday, or it means so much when you share your day with me. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to be willing to pause, willing to reflect, willing to try something different. Because when your child feels safe again, the door opens. And when the door opens, love walks back in. You do not need to change who you are. You just need to change how you communicate. Small shifts in your words can lead to big shifts in your relationships. And it does not have to happen overnight. Start with awareness. Pay attention to the moments when old habits show up. Then, choose connection over correction. Choose honesty over guilt. Choose curiosity over criticism. You might be surprised how quickly things can turn around. Your adult children want to love you. They want to feel close to you, but they need to feel safe doing it. So give them a reason to come closer. Speak in a way that invites them in. Because when your words carry love, your relationships can heal. And it is never too late to start. Which phrase stood out to you the most today? Was there one that made you stop and think, I've said that before? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video gave you something to reflect on, hit the like button and subscribe for more conversations about love, family, and aging well. Share this with a friend who might need it. Sometimes, one honest sentence can heal years of silence.